There are styles in boxing that don't aim to outpoint a man, don't try to steal rounds, and don't rely on moments. They exist to break whatever is in front of them. Styles built on constant forward pressure and a suffocating volume of punches that strips an opponent of space, rhythm, and confidence. One by one, elite fighters have tried to survive it, only to find themselves forced backward, pinned down, and broken under an intensity that never eases. In modern boxing, it's almost impossible to find someone with a greater affinity to said style than the Mexican monster, David Benavidez. That aura followed him into his second fight at 175 pounds, where the challenge wasn't meant to be trivial. Across the ring stood Anthony Yarde, a dangerous, explosive light heavyweight who had given every man he faced trouble. The bout was framed as a test, a way to see if David Benavidez's dominance truly carried into the higher weight class. Instead, he tore through Yarde with startling authority, delivering a performance so decisive that even his loudest critics were left stunned.
Yarde just doesn't seem to have an answer. David Benavidez, the referee has seen it, and there it is! The Mexican monster roars here in Riyadh!
I got some news for you guys. May 2nd, me versus Zurdo Ramirez. I'm going up the cruiserweight to challenge for his title, so I'm excited for that.
Standing in his way now is a name he knows well, but at a completely different weight and stage of his career. Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez isn't the same fighter from years ago. He's a full-grown cruiserweight world champion, stronger, heavier, and far more seasoned.
He turned in a dominant display, especially in the later rounds against Uniel Dorticos. Here in our co-main event from Anaheim, California. Good left from the champ, and then a right to finish it off.
The familiarity makes it dangerous. This isn't about learning a new opponent. It's about facing an old one who has evolved, carrying real size, championship experience, and a style built to impose itself physically. What once felt like a crossroads now feels like a collision, where history meets the realities of a higher weight class, and there's no room for assumptions. Benavidez is coming forward, he always is, dragging the fight into deeper water with pressure that never lets up. Zurdo will look to box, to use his size, his southpaw angles, and his experience to control the pace and keep the chaos at range. It's the oldest fight in boxing, pressure versus the boxer. But when you add Mexican pride, shared history, and two men who refuse to give ground, it becomes something else entirely. Heavier hands, harder exchanges, and a fight that's destined to turn violent before it turns tactical. This is Benavidez versus Zurdo, a closer look. Benavidez didn't arrive as the obvious prodigy. As a kid, he was overweight, raw, and often standing in the shadow of his older brother Jose, the polished talent everyone pointed to as the future.
His older brother is probably even more talented than David, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, no, he is.
But
Let's see him, man.
But while others focused on potential, David lived in the gym. As he grew, the weight came off and the work multiplied, and by his early teens, he was already being thrown into the deep end, sparring seasoned professionals, not prospects. By 14, he was sharing rounds with world champions like Gennady Golovkin and Kelly Pavlik, absorbing lessons the hard way. Footage of those Pavlik sparring sessions eventually leaked, and it stunned people. The young kid wasn't surviving, he was giving a former middleweight king real problems. That was the moment the narrative flipped, when promise turned into inevitability and the monster began to take shape.
Do you remember David Benavidez as a 50-year-old kid coming to your gym and sparring some of your guys? What do you remember from that day? I remember I didn't post the video because I was so impressed how good he did.
Really good against Kelly Pavlik.
Yeah?
For all the destruction he left in the ring, Benavidez's nickname didn't come immediately. Even after winning a world title and becoming the youngest champion in his division, he was still spoken about in terms of potential rather than identity. It wasn't until years later, after the resume had grown and the dominance became undeniable, that the label finally stuck. And it came from one of the few voices in boxing that carries unquestioned weight.
Hey, how'd you give him that nickname, the Mexican Monster?
I'd be afraid to fight him too, if I was in that division. No one even had the chance against him.
From that moment on, the name followed him, not as hype, but as recognition. A title bestowed by a man who knew exactly what it looked like when fear, pressure, and violence came together in the ring. The Mexican Monster wasn't protected or matched carefully. He was thrown in with elite fighters and told to compete, then to dominate. Benavidez's resume already stands as one of the strongest you can build in the modern era. Victories over Demetrius Andrade, Caleb Plant, and David Morrell aren't just names. They're styles, champions, and elite operators beaten in different ways. But even that list only tells part of the story. Benavidez has even had infamous rounds with Dimitri Bivol.
You could touch somebody in the sparring, you could touch them in the fight, you know what I mean? And Bivol is a great fighter, but like I said, every time I get in there with a great fighter, it puts me to a different mindset because I know, these fighters are very dangerous. So when I was sparring with Bivol, I sparred him a lot, and you could go ask him, whoever his people are. I'm not no liar. I heard him the last time we sparred.
And woven into that history are sparring rounds with Zurdo Ramirez as well. Two big, skilled bodies testing each other years before the stakes were public. Those rounds didn't decide a winner, but they created familiarity, respect, and a quiet understanding that when they finally meet under the lights, this won't feel new at all. Zurdo Ramirez brings a different kind of threat. A massive, skillful southpaw with classic Mexican grit, layered over technical patience and size. He's a two-division world champion who's fought his way to the top, not with flash, but with control, volume, and an ability to impose himself physically over long fights. The lone blemish on his rise came against Dimitri Bivol, where he fell short at light heavyweight, outboxed over the distance. After the loss, Zurdo didn't stall, he evolved. He moved up to cruiserweight and began a deliberate rebuild, adding strength to his already massive frame and fighting with a calmer, more controlled patience. The wins started stacking up, and soon he captured the WBA cruiserweight world title, proving that the jump in weight wasn't a gamble, but a solution. From there, his confidence only grew. What began as a response to defeat turned into a full reinvention, with Zurdo emerging not just as a champion again, but as a bigger, stronger, and more complete fighter than ever before. This is where the roads finally meet. One man built to advance, to compress space and turn every second into punishment. The other built to control, to impose size and skill with the calm of a seasoned champion. There are no mysteries left, no soft landings, no excuses waiting on the other side. Benavidez brings pressure that breaks fighters down to their core. Zurdo brings championship size, experience, and a style forged in heavier divisions. It's pressure versus control, youth versus reinvention, violence versus calculation, with Mexican pride running through both. When the bell rings, only one truth will remain. Not every monster survives another monster.
First, niggas got it.